Hello, everybody. This episode of the Lsvp Video Podcast is brought to you, as always, as a huge thank you to Joe Rogan and the JRE, the Joe Rogan Experience Podcast. Joe Rogan thought about doing this. You can listen to his comedy on Spotify. You can listen to his podcast on iTunes. And you can view his podcast on YouTube. Today I'm outside because I said screw it and decided we're going to try one outside. That loud sound you hear in the background is the little fountain deal that's on the pond to keep bugs and whatnot down. Yeah. So if you suddenly feel the urge to pee, that's why. It's that sound. Don't know how loud it is on here. When I ran back to check to see if I could actually be out here with my audio, I couldn't hear it that much, but when I pause, who knows? We are also brought to you as a huge thank you to Zions, the only energy drink I drink. 0 calories, 0 sugar, no crash, no jitters. The great tasting 0 calorie energy drink. Real energy for real people. The unique formula that gives you the hashtag Power2Podcast. Today I am drinking Cran Raz. I don't even have to look at the can anymore. I'm quite proud of myself. Thank you very much. Also brought to you as a huge thank you to Sling TV. Sling TV, take back your cable. Are you sick of paying high cable prices to view only limited content? I know I was. That's why I switched to Sling TV. It is broadcast over the internet. They have deals with ESPN, Fox Sports Detroit, Fox Sports, so I can watch FS1, FS2. They have deals with AMC, FX, Comedy Central. I was sick of paying high prices in my apartment complex for a limited number of channels, and so I chose to ditch that and go to Sling. As their slogan says, take back your TV. If you guys want to switch to Sling, it's fantastic. I am a big fan of it. We're also brought to you by the only one real sponsor that I can 100% stand behind, and that is Fucks. They're not given here, they're not given there, they're not given anywhere on this podcast. That pretty much does it. Those other companies, I am not sponsored by them, unfortunately. Although if they'd like to, that'd be fantastic. Anything that I say is not necessarily the message they want to convey. I'm going to attempt to do this podcast clean. We'll try. I'm probably going to fail, but it's worth the shot. Along with drinking Zions, I'm going to be smoking a Camacho cigar, for those of you who want to see that a little closer. Ta-da. It's a Connecticut. Yeah, pretty cool logo, actually. Yeah, I like smoking a cigar during the podcast, because I haven't done that yet. And, yeah, why not? I can do pretty much whatever I want. It's the best part about being your own boss. I can do whatever I want. I can say just about whatever I want. I mean, within reason. There's a few things YouTube doesn't want me to say, but for the most part, I'm going to say whatever I want. It's kind of nice. Let's crack this baby open. I always look like an idiot when I'm trying to open this. It's because I'm only doing it with one finger. I don't know why. Fantastic as always. Take out my fancy dancy torch and my fancy dancy keys. See if those will sit there. I doubt it. If they fall, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, they're keys. They're not. Hang on a second. I have a trash can out here, so I'm going to stick in a little pocket dealio. Take that with me when I leave. To explain what I'm about to do, I'm going to smoke this. I already said that. This is a hole punch. There are two different types of ways to cut a cigar. There's guillotine cutters that are what you normally see in like the movies. You have a hold of them with two fingers, and they actually cut, like a guillotine, the end off. Some people like them. I'm not a huge fan. If I can avoid it and get anything with the rounded tip, then I just go ahead with the punch. If some have a torpedo, is what they're called, they're pointed at the end, then you have to cut them. Never done this over here, so hang on. No, this isn't the first time I smoke a cigar. I smoke these all the time. It's the first time I've actually tried to show somebody through a camera what the hell you do. Yeah, it's the only problem with smoking cigars is there's no, like filter on the end. Sometimes it craps in your mouth, for lack of a better term. Best way to tell if you're going to get a real good draw out of this is when you breathe in without lighting it. You can feel the air. You can't, and you got to cut it again. I apologize, guys. And there you go. Just double check. I smoked one of these last night, and I was in the middle of ashing it, and a piece flew up and hit me in the leg. That hurts like a bitch. Okay, so today we're going to be discussing the NFL schedule, some light NFL news, NCAA schedule, and of course the upcoming fight card. So if I can scroll over to that, fantastic. So this weekend, the 24th of September, scroll down a second, the fight will be broadcast on FS1. The start of the card is, as usual, kind of weak. Last week's card, just as a whole, was bad. This one has a few good fights, but of course, as usual, you start off with not so great. Gregor Gillespie is going to fight Glacio Franca. Vince Luque, I think I pronounced it right. It's either Luque or Luque or Luque against Hector Ubina. Alan Parker Alves against Stephen Ray. Eric Silva against Luna Chagas. Jose De Silva against Dustin Ortiz. Ishinori Tanaka against Hanayaya. That should be a good fight. Gilbert Burns against Michael Cruzeras. Godofredo Castro against Mike Del Toro. And we start to get into the meat of the card, which is pretty good. Thiago Santos against Eric Spicely. Francisco Trinaldo against Paul Felder. That's a really good fight. That's kind of a fight hidden in this card. Everybody's going to talk about the main event and the co-main and the fight after that. But a lot of people forgot that Francisco Trinaldo is even on this card. And he's fighting a huge, huge opponent in Paul Felder. So I'm pretty happy about it. It should be a good fight. The next fight is Roy Nelson against Antonio Bigfoot Silva. That should be a pretty good fight. I'm going to pick Silva to win that one. Both guys have a solid chin. Both have huge hands. The difference is one has one weapon. He can hit you with the one hand and you're going to go out. The other one actually has, a decent background. He can take you down and submit you if he really has to. Now, we got to go to the next part of this conversation, which is, okay, Roy's getting up there in age. I think he should retire. Bigfoot's getting up there in age, and he's been caught with steroids. Was this last time? The first time he got caught? It's either the first time or the second time he got caught, just recently. But you got to ask that question. Is he going to show up roided up again? This fight is, where's this fight going to be? Oh, never mind. It's going to be in Brasilia, Federal District of Brazil. So, I guarantee that Bigfoot is going to be hopped up on the roids. They don't care in Brazil. The co-main event is Renan Barão against Philip Neuber. That should be a really good fight. I'm going to go ahead and lean with Barral on that one. Not to say that Neuber can't somehow win that fight. I just think that you got to go with the best fighter, and in that fight, that's absolutely Hennon. Then, of course, you get the main event, which is Christine Cyborg Justino against Lena Landsberg. So Cyborg and Landsberg, again, going to side with the one who's going to be on roids, which is Cyborg. A, she's already a killer. B, she's in Brazil, where she's from. C, they don't care if you're hopped up a little bit. So, I'm going to lean towards the one that's probably going to look like a dude and beat the shit out of Lena. Now, again, if Silva and Cyborg show up on steroids, you got to ask the next question, which is, okay, does the USADA actually able to do anything about this? Because it's a fight outside the United States. And I'm not 100% certain on that, because that was one of the things coming back from the Australia fight, is somebody got popped. I don't remember who it was, and they claimed it was due to, was it kangaroo meat or tainted meat of some form? I forget. But I remembered them coming back and saying, I got drug tested. So if they come right back from Brasilia and drug test these guys, and they fail, can it really become, can they get suspended? I would imagine yes, but at the same time, they're in Brazil. So, U.S., Brazil, obviously different rules. Sorry if you see my thumb. I have a touch screen. It's easier to use my thumb than to try and monkey with the scrolling options. Because sometimes you monkey with the scrolling options and it shuts the camera off. Which really sucks. Let me put my cigar down real quick. Ah! Almost rolled out of the ashtray. Alright. Upcoming fights. I'm not going to get real deep into this just because I take away a lot of what I talk about when I go over this. I'm only going to go over the next two cards. And that is October 1st, which is Fight Night 96, Lineker and Dotson. That is in the United States. It's in Oregon, Portland, Oregon. And the main event of that is John Lineker against John Dotson. The co-main event is Will Brooks against Alex Oliveira. I'm not going to get into the card after that. It's a pretty decent card from what I see so far. Yeah. Okay. I'll go over this, obviously, later. I don't want to go over it right now because, as I've been pointed out, people don't like it when I have to repeat myself. When I go over a card and then a week later I go back over it and they're like, you did that last week. So I'm only going to do the main event and co-main event for the next upcoming cards. There's that one, and the next one after that is going to be the last one we're going to talk about real quick. And that is UFC 204. There we go. It jumped, which is in Manchester, England. The co-main of that, for that fight, is Gegard Mousasi against Vitor Belfort. Not sure how that's going to go. Simply because, Vitor is Vitor. And he has a way, even when he wasn't on TRT, to sneak wins out. He might be able to catch Gegard. I would put money on Gegard. But Vitor is 50-50 on that. And then, of course, the main event is the current middleweight champion, Michael Bisping, against Dan Henderson. And I want Dan Henderson to knock Michael Bisping out so badly. And then get that belt put around his waist and retire. I doubt that's what we'll get, but that's what I like to see. Those are the next two upcoming fights. Of course, that's October 1st, and this one, 204, is on October 8th. All right, next, NFL news. So Adrian Peterson went down on When did they play? Did they play Monday night? No, Sunday night. He went down with a meniscus tear. He is, quote-unquote, to miss several months. Since then, they've obviously promoted Matt Asiata and who's their other back? I can't remember the name of the other guy that they've got in the backfield. They've updated them to, up the depth chart. And they've also signed Ronnie Hillman, former running back with the Broncos. Not sure how they're going to be able to... of course, the big discussion is they don't know how they're going to be able to do without AP. I actually think they'll do okay. I was a big doubter on Sam Bradford. He lit it up against the Packers. Their defense is pretty good. And personally, I think you actually gain something if you don't have AP out on the field. Because although Adrian Peterson is a big piece of your offense, when they were against the Packers, as soon as AP was in the backfield, they went after him. So when he did get the ball, he didn't get very far. And I think that's pretty much everybody's game plan against Minnesota, is sit back a little bit in coverage and go after Adrian Peterson. Now without AP, you pick up, in my opinion, a little bit of an edge on your offense, because now, just because Asiata is in, doesn't mean they're going to run the ball. I think you gain a little. I know this is still a run offense, but I got to give credit to Sam Bradford. He looked impressive. He's only been in the system a couple weeks. He figured out the offense. He looked really good. And they just kind of let him do his thing. And I thought he looked fantastic. Another quarterback I thought that looked fantastic was somebody that I wanted to hate from the beginning. You heard me say he's a bum, won't get anywhere. He's now the starter in Philadelphia, and that, of course, is Carson Wentz. I was one of the doubters. I didn't think he'd do anything. Carson Wentz lit it up in 2 games. Now, I'm going to say this. You lit it up against Cleveland, didn't care. It's Cleveland. They don't have a defense. They hardly have an offense. Chicago. That one was more of a proving ground for me. That I think that this kid, Carson Wentz, is actually worth paying attention to. He's got a decent arm. He's got decent mobility inside and outside the pocket. He has good vision. And he doesn't make a lot of really dumb mistakes. And I especially like how far he is in progression. That, they don't... So normally with rookie quarterbacks, what it is we tell you to play, and don't worry about, the blocking scheme. We'll figure that out later. You give them a year to kind of figure out the playbook. I mean, of course you want them to know how to set up protection. But for the first couple games, you're probably going to get knocked around a little bit, because we're going to try and figure out how we set up the line and everything to match you. This kid came out, and he's changing lineups. He's changing the setup. He's changing where the blocker's going. He's changing where the receivers are going. He's audibling. He looks like a 2-3 year kid, as opposed to a rookie. And I thought he looked fantastic. I'm not saying that, everyone should jump on the Carson bandwagon yet. But I'm saying so far he has looked impressive. I'm not 100% sold on him because you played Cleveland and then Chicago. And Chicago didn't look that great. Cutler went down in that game. He has a hand injury. It's supposedly it's either a fractured thumb or he tore something along the inside of his thumb. He went down on it kind of awkwardly after a fumble, and then he couldn't throw it right. So, last I heard is he might suit up this weekend, but they might leave him out just to try out Hoyer and let him rest. All right, now we go to the actual matchups. On Thursday night, it's going to be Houston and New England. Now, New England is without Gronkowski. Last I heard, he's supposed to be out for this upcoming game. You're without Brady, because he's suspended. Sorry. Brady's suspended. He's out for 2 more games, counting this one. And Jimmy Garoppolo, who has been lighting it up, went down with a shoulder injury. I think that's what they're talking about right now on NFL Now in the little corner box. So I don't know what to do personally with that game. I would like to say that you lean Houston, but that's the broken one. That's why I'm having problems with that. I have 2 lighters out here. One of them's busted up. The gas comes out of it, but it doesn't ignite. There we go. Ah, sorry. Cracked my mouth again. There we go. But New England has looked fantastic. And even if they have to start... I almost said Paxton Lynch, and that's not correct. Who's their 3rd stringer? Give me a second, I'll come up with it. It's NC State, Jacoby Brissett, who was picked in the 3rd round of this year's draft. See, I know my shit. See, mostly clean. I said I'd try. With him, he's not a huge thrower of the ball. What I mean by that is Garoppolo, you could put him on the 20-yard line and go, throw it up there to the 45, and we're going to see how many yards after you threw it that far we can get. You really can't do that with Brissett. He doesn't have... I'm not saying he doesn't have a good arm. I'm saying his arm style, the way he plays, is he's more of a 10, 12-yard short pass and go. Which I think could work against the Houston Texans, who have a very talented defense. I think what you need to do is you look into that and you say, okay, well, here's our setup. We've got LeGarrette Blount. We've got Martellus Bennett. We've got Edelman, who can throw. We found that out. He was a former quarterback at Kansas State. You got Amendola. What's the name of the kid from... came from the Bills. Chris Hogan. You've got the kid from Georgia that you've been playing. He's got an injured elbow. I don't know if you really want to do that too much. And so the way I'm looking at it is, okay, I know I've got dynamic core of receivers. I got 2 guys right there in Amendola and Edelman that can take the tops off defenses. I got Chris Hogan, who's becoming that guy that I can depend on. And you got a quarterback who's not necessarily the guy that you like. He's not going to gun it down the field, 50, 60 yards with a lot of accuracy. Ouch. So I think what you do is you run the ball and incorporate short throws. Maybe 1 or 2 medium throws, but if you need to go long, you need to incorporate what they did in the playoffs, which is that nice short snap and flip over to Edelman and have Edelman gun it down the field. The play obviously works. Give it a shot. On Sunday, Arizona plays Buffalo. Oh, my prediction for that, I lean Houston. I know I said, it's a 50-50. I lean Houston because they've got one of my favorite players in the world on their roster, and that's Will Fuller. And he's going to take the top off the defense, so I'm not worried about it. But I would expect Osweiler to throw at least 1 pick, if not 2. Arizona and Buffalo. So Arizona's got the dynamic defense. They're a blitzing machine. And they've got a pretty solid secondary. I look for Arizona to beat up on Buffalo. Buffalo has no defense to say. Their offense is sluggish even when it's working. So I say you blitz the shit out of them. You drop one guy back in coverage to watch the quarterback, and you let everybody else drop back in coverage in case it's a throw. I would look for at least one guy to constantly spy and keep an eye on LaShawn McCoy, probably a linebacker, and I'd look for somebody to keep an eye on Tyrod Taylor. Other than that, you're probably good. Drop a safety down on top of Goodwin, you've shut the entire offense down. This, of course, is all while you're blitzing with your outside, inside, and defensive line. Linebackers, outside and inside. I apologize. Minnesota at Carolina. I look for Carolina to at least win by 28. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, you just contradicted yourself. You said Minnesota's a decent team. They are. But Carolina has an electric offense. You've got a guy that's nearly 6'6" in Calvin Benjamin. You got another guy that's 6'5" and 3/4 or something like that in Funches. You got one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Cam Newton. And you got a pretty solid backfield. Now, the blocking needs to get better. The defense needs to get better. But I think Carolina handles Minnesota no problem, especially because now there's no threat of AP in the backfield. I'm not saying that Minnesota can't cop off a couple points, but let's be honest here, it's Carolina. Denver at Cincinnati. So, I'm a big believer in Andy Dalton. I like the kid. He's really good. They got a pretty good offense, but they're going to be going up against this thing I like to call basically a brick wall, and that's Denver's defense. Denver's defense is insane. They've got Von Miller, who I think is overrated, but is still a good player. They've got Roby, who they don't even play half the time. They've got a solid backfield. They've got more linebackers that they can cycle in and out. They've got a decent defensive line. And then on offense, you got C.J. Anderson and Trevor Siemian, who a lot of people are laughing about right now. Oh, Trevor Siemian, he's supposed to be the guy to replace Peyton Manning. No, he isn't. He's not replacing Peyton Manning. First of all, that's not really possible. Peyton Manning's Peyton Manning. You really can't replace him. That's like when Drew Brees decides to retire. Are you really going to be able to find the replacement for him? No. You're finding another guy who's pretty good. The only time I can honestly say they've replaced the guy is Aaron Rodgers. He replaced Brett Favre. A little sweat from the can got on my shorts. So I look for Denver to boink at Cincinnati, probably end up winning 31-17, if not 38. Detroit at Green Bay. Both offenses sluggish. Both defenses, I look for Green Bay to win by 7. 7-10. I'll leave you a little gap there in case there's maybe a safety or something. But let's be honest here. The offense of Detroit hadn't looked that great. The defense of Detroit hadn't looked that great. The offense of Green Bay, looked okay. Defense, not so much. So I look for that to be a pretty close game. I say Green Bay wins by 7-10. Somewhere in there. They might get a field. I'm trying to give room for if there's short yardage and they decide to kick a field goal. I'll say 8 for fair game. Baltimore at Jacksonville. Baltimore runs over Jacksonville single-handedly, easily. Jacksonville has a lot of fresh, young faces and is a very young team. Now, normally I'd say that's a good thing. You want young players. However, in this case, it hurts you because they're young players. Baltimore has a veteran defense, veteran receivers, and a veteran quarterback. I see them winning by 17. Baltimore. Cleveland at Miami. At least I believe it's that way. It's either Miami at Cleveland or Cleveland at Miami. I think Cleveland's at Miami. Anyway, now that I'm trying to think that through, I'm not entirely sure. Cleveland, let's see. So, you lose RG3. You lose McCown. Now you're starting a rookie in Cody Kessler, who's a decent quarterback. You don't have, what's his name? Receiver. Sure, an arrest warrant just came out for him. Can't stay out of trouble. From Baylor. I can't think of his name right now. You got Corey Coleman, who's a quick receiver with decent hands. You have Isaiah Crowell, who gives me headaches in the backfield. And you really don't have an offensive line. Defensively, Carl Nassib, one of the best defensive ends coming out of college, I have to say. He's in my top 10. Hurt. One of your linebackers is hurt. You traded Barkevius Mingo, and you traded away Justin Gilbert. So let's look at that defense. You've got nobody. You've got nobody. However, Miami, you've got Tannehill. You've got Jarvis Landry. Do they still have... When did he leave? No, he's gone. I'm sorry, he's gone. He's somewhere else. Sorry, I was thinking of a different receiver, but he's not there. You got the defensive line with Sue. You got decent linebackers in Kiko Alonso. And an okay backfield. I say Miami wins by 10. Washington at the Giants. Giants smoke Washington 24-10. Washington has looked terrible. I don't know what happened to the Kirk Cousins of last year. Apparently he died. Because the new Kirk Cousins of this year looks like trash. He can't throw. He thinks too much. He gets sacked a lot. And in the red zone, let's just put it to you this way. First down and 10 in the red zone, you might as well kick a field goal. Because that's what's going to happen anyway if you don't turn the ball over. They're not getting in the end zone. Running back wise, they trade Alfred Morris. Don't know why. He's in Dallas now. Or they cut him. They either cut him or they traded him. They cut him, I think. Again, either way, he's not on the roster. Receiving wise, you have Josh Doxson, who I haven't seen yet. You've got Deshaun brain fart. I don't know why I now can't think of his name. Deshaun Jackson, thank you. I couldn't come up with that. I don't know why I couldn't come up with that. I came up with his first name, and then my brain just blanked. You don't really have anything on defense. We have Josh Norman. Yeah, but after you got Josh Norman, which is a beautiful piece, did you build around Josh Norman? No, you didn't. So, congratulations. You have one corner. On the other side, you have Breland, who gets burned every other play. Your defense isn't stopping anybody. Your offense isn't scoring. You're getting smoked. The G-Men this year is one of my teams to watch. The Giants, possibly. Now, again, they got to contend with the Cowboys, who have another really interesting offense. I say they win the NFC East. The Giants. I think the Cowboys come in second. The Giants have Eli Manning, a decent offensive line, solid receivers, a decent running back. They spent a fuckload of money on their defense. This is the team to keep an eye on. I mean, really, honestly, they did the smart thing this offseason. Washington went out and got Josh Norman, paid him this huge contract. Yeah? Well, the Giants went out and they went, oh, we like that guy. We'll sign him. And we like these three other guys, too. We'll take them. In the draft, we're going to get Sterling Shepard, a solid defensive line, a couple defensive linemen, a couple linebackers. They did the smart thing. They picked certain people out and went, we're going to start you. First pick, Eli Apple. We need to help the defense. We need to be able to get turnovers. We need a corner that can shut people down. Boom, you got it. Oh, we kind of have a little trouble on offense moving the ball. Oh, we'll get Sterling Shepard, one of the most electric receivers out of Oklahoma in years. I mean, seriously, this is one of the teams to beat. Oakland at Tennessee. So Oakland has looked not so great. Tennessee has looked okay. I think Tennessee wins by 10. San Francisco at Seattle. So Seattle's offense is a Rubik's Cube, and no one can figure out which way to get all the right colors on the same side. The O-line, there isn't one. Russell Wilson isn't being mobile because there isn't an offensive line. The receivers are really non-existent. The defense is still a decent defense. So congratulations, you can stop teams from scoring. But as I like to point out from last year, I think what team is it? Philadelphia. When you put your defense on the field every 2-3 minutes, they get tired. You get tired, you're not playing well. Then, boom, the points start racking up like that, which has been the problem with Seattle. Seattle hasn't been able to score. And it's kind of sad. So I see San Francisco winning. I think this is going to be another one of those weird scores. 13-10. No, 13-9. Seahawks won't score a touchdown. They'll kick 3 field goals. So yeah, 13-9. LA at Tampa. LA and Tampa, I should say, because I'm not entirely sure. Now that I'm looking at the schedule, I don't know who's where. I think Houston's playing at New England, but I'm not entirely sure. So LA and Tampa. LA, offense, not so much. Defense, however, they've been able to stop some pretty decent teams. Now, of course, everyone goes, decent teams? San Francisco blanked them. Yeah, they didn't score any points. But did you see the Seattle game? They did a good job of stopping Russell and those receivers. Now, I say they got a decent defense, because part of the equation is also the Seattle Seahawks stopped themselves. Sorry, I got like a crumb or something in my eye. Probably an eyelash. But, LA and Tampa. I see Tampa winning 28-13. San Diego at Indianapolis. So San Diego went out and got receiver from the Browns. Give me a second. Travis Benjamin. And a lot of people went, who cares? He didn't do anything in Cleveland. So far, he's been targeted 6 times. He has 6 receptions for 140 yards or something like that, and 1 or 2 touchdowns. They got Melvin Gordon, who suddenly decided he wants to play. They did just lose Danny Woodhead, which definitely hurts them. They signed a solid kick returner and a decent running back in Dexter McCluster to replace him. The defense looks pretty good. Unsure if Bosa is going to finally play. The rumor is yes, but he's still experiencing some tightness in, I want to say it's his hip. It's either his hip or his calf. And so he's still questionable. Otherwise, their defenses look pretty good. And Indy has just looked sluggish. I hate to keep using that word, but to be honest with you, that's how they've looked. They've looked sluggish. they'll score 14 unanswered points, and then their defense will give up 4 touchdowns. If they still have the injuries that they have, again, I'm unsure. This is one of those things where you really don't know until the game starts. And their corners are still out. I look for San Diego to light them up and score almost unopposed. Now, at the same side, if there's no Bosa, and I think one of their linebackers is down, you got to think about Indiana. You got to think about the Colts. They have Jack Doyle. They still have a solid quarterback in Andrew Luck. And they have a decent receiving corps. And they got Frank Gore, who scored a beautiful touchdown last week in Denver. Or they were at home. It was against Denver, I think. No, it was in Denver, because they were wearing white. So yeah, it was in Denver. White's their away color. They're white and blue. I don't know if anybody's uploaded it to YouTube yet, but after you're done watching this, feel free to go back. He caught a screen pass. May not even been a screen. It was a pass. He got hit, stumbled, made sure he kept his feet in bounds, and stretched his arm over the pylon and in. It's pretty sexy, to be perfectly honest with you. Definitely look that up after you're done watching me. Or you could hit pause and watch it. I don't care. Just come back. Please come back. I could use the views. I say Cincinnati. I say San Diego beats Indianapolis by 6. The New York Jets at Kansas City. So the Jets have actually looked pretty good. They've run the ball quite well with Forte. They've been able to get receivers open. They've thrown to them. Quincy Enwez looks pretty good. Brandon Marshall looks fantastic. Eric Deckers looks really good. And Jalen Marshall, rookie out of Ohio State, has looked pretty good. However, you're facing Kansas City. Kansas City is one of those very tricky teams. Even without Jamal Charles, I don't know if he's playing. Again, another one of those game time decisions. They've still managed to put up quite a few points. Their defense is really good. Even after they let go of my boy Kavari Russell, who I am a little hurt about. He's now in Cincinnati. Don't know if he'll play. Rumor is he'll play, but I don't know. So I say Kansas City wins by 7. They win by a late touchdown. Because the Jets' offenses look good, and their defense is pretty good. And a couple questions about their backfield, but for the most part, pretty good team. Pittsburgh at Philly. So you get Big Ben and that offense going into Philly. Going to play Philly. Their offenses look pretty good, Philadelphia. Carson Wentz has looked pretty good. Now, this is where my big criticism comes. This will be the game to see what is Carson Wentz made of. Because so far you've played Chicago and Cleveland. Now you're facing a real defense with a real offense that if you screw up, will burn you. I look for Philadelphia to get its first loss, Carson Wentz to throw his first interception. It won't be a big deal. They'll probably still be close. But I think Pittsburgh wins by 14. Page is refreshing. Hang on a second. Chicago and Dallas. So you get Dallas's offense and Chicago's offense going up against one another. And if you look at, and I'll say the numbers, who's actually going to play, this is an easy decision. And so I asked the question, do you like Dak? Because he's going to score multiple points against Chicago. Chicago's defense is banged up now after the Philly game. Chicago's offense is banged up. And Dallas has looked really good. They hand the ball off to Alfred Morris. They hand the ball off to Zeke Elliott. They have Dak Prescott, who can burn you with his legs and his arm. They got a decent receiving corps. I think they'd still need another receiver. But overall, they've done a pretty good job. The offensive line's the best offensive line in football. As much as I hate Dallas, they have a solid offensive line. Their defense is decent. I say Dallas wins by 14. And then Monday night, Atlanta in New Orleans. Now, normally I would say, you lean against New Orleans because of their defense. But this is a rivalry game. These two teams don't like each other. And in this particular game, in this early of the year, we're dealing with, normally Atlanta has their quarterback. And their quarterback is Matty Ice, Matt Ryan. Well, right now he's playing like Matty Slushy. He has moments of just sheer beautiful passes, and then he turns around and does something, and you go, what the hell was that? Despite New Orleans' defense, I think their offense can put up some points. I say the final score of this game is 21-17, Atlanta wins. Now we move on to college football. Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Number 5, Clemson plays Georgia Tech. That should be a good game. Clemson's offense has looked shaky. Their defense has looked shaky. And Georgia Tech is one of those really weird teams. They're like Navy. If you come into the game going, it's just Georgia Tech, they'll burn you. However, if you go into the game going, it's Georgia Tech, you'll probably smack the crap out of them. It's like that with Navy. Navy, we're going to run them over. Well, they're going to run for 150 yards, and they're going to throw for about 15. Expect the option. Friday, Wyoming plays at Eastern Michigan. Texas Christian plays at SMU. And Southern California, who's continued to just look terrible, is going to play number 24 Utah. On Saturday, Kent State plays number 1 Alabama at Alabama. Number 12 Georgia plays at number 23 Ole Miss. Nevada plays at Purdue. San Jose State plays at Iowa State. Charlotte plays at Temple. Iowa plays at Rutgers. Number 13 Florida State plays at South Florida. Colorado State plays at Minnesota. Number 11 Wisconsin plays number 8 Michigan State. That is one of the games I'm keeping an eye on. Michigan State looked pretty good against Notre Dame. They looked pretty good against their other opponents. Then you get Wisconsin, who, in my opinion, upset LSU and has looked pretty solid throughout the beginning of the year. My understanding is Bart Houston is out. Again, that is what I've heard. So I lean towards Michigan State here, but if Bart Houston does end up playing, Wisconsin. East Carolina at Virginia Tech. Central Michigan at Virginia. Syracuse at Connecticut. Wagner at Boston College. Gardner-Webb at Ohio. Miami of Ohio at Cincinnati. Western Illinois at Northern Illinois. That should be an interesting game. Appalachian State at Akron. Boise State at Oregon State. Brigham Young at West Virginia. Duke at Notre Dame. Mississippi State at UMass. Here's a big game to keep an eye on. Number 19 Florida at number 14 Tennessee. Now, last year, that was the most electric and most interesting game I watched all year. It was a great game, and the Vols lost due to a missed field goal. Now, you got to look at it this way. Florida last year had a solid defense with an offense. They lost a lot to the draft. They lost Keno Neal, Vernon Hargraves, And they lost several defensive linemen. They lost Bullard, one of their defensive tackles, and another end, I think, plus a couple of linebackers. So you got to look at who lost what. Now, when it comes to the plus and minus of the draft, Florida lost some serious talent. Tennessee didn't. I'm not saying the players that went from Tennessee weren't talented. It's just that overall on the roster, Tennessee kept a lot of the guys that they need to use to win, where Florida, they went to the draft. I look for Tennessee to snap the 0-10 or 0-12 slide against Florida. They win by 3. Pittsburgh at North Carolina. Texas San Antonio at Old Dominion. Penn State at Michigan. Don't know why Michigan's ranked 4th. They haven't played anybody. They continue to not play anybody. And yeah, I don't know why they're 4th. If they were like 7th, okay. But 4th, no. They deserve to be in the top 10, just not 4th. Wake Forest at Indiana. Delaware State at Missouri. Vanderbilt is at Western Kentucky. Tulsa at Fresno State. Colorado at Oregon. LSU, number 18, at Auburn. So, LSU and Auburn have similar issues. They like to run the ball. They have usually 1 to 2 really good receivers. LSU has 3 or 4 this year. But Auburn has this huge problem, and that is they can't make their mind up as to who to play. The opener, they played 3 quarterbacks. Of the 3, the third stringer is the guy that looked the best, and you only played him occasionally. The starter, Sean White, had a decent arm, decent ability to vacate the pocket, but didn't look all that great. He looked okay. Probably second stringer, I would say. Jeremy Johnson, the guy you started the last couple of years, looked absolutely terrible. He couldn't throw the ball. He couldn't stand back in the pocket. He couldn't take off when he wanted to. I say, yeah, bench him. And then this lovely, lovely child came from nowhere, as I like to tell you guys. He originally went to Florida State. Florida State went bye-bye. And he went to this little college called Eastern Mississippi State Community College. If you don't know what I'm referring to, it's a little itty-bitty community college that some of the really decent players have gone to refurbish their careers. Shining example at the moment is Ole Miss's quarterback, Chad Kelly. How did I find out about this kid, you might ask? If you go to Netflix, you'll see a Last Chance U as an option. It's a mini documentary series that they had, and it's about this college, and it's from last year. And this kid played for that team, and the team looked decent. He looked okay at that school. Then I see him go to Auburn, and so I was like, all right, I gotta check this kid out. And you know what? He looked great. He's got a decent arm, good legs. I say you start him and have Sean White back him up. LSU is the team I'd look to win that game. They got the most to lose. Ball State at Florida Atlantic. North Texas is at Rice. Number 6, Houston is at Texas State. Central Arkansas is at Arkansas State. New Mexico State is at Troy. Nichols is at South Alabama. Georgia Southern is at Western Michigan. I look for Western Michigan to beat them. University of Central Florida plays Florida International. Louisiana Tech plays Middle Tennessee. Army plays at Buffalo. Missouri State at Kansas State. Number 20, Nebraska plays Northwestern at Northwestern. Oklahoma State is at number 16, Baylor. Now, Baylor has had some issues, and that's part of the reason why they're not ranked so high. They'll claim that's not, but it is. And, you know, they lost a lot of recruits. But I thought they looked good. Their offense looks, I'm not going to say electric because they lost some serious depth with both recruits and guys that went to the draft. But they still have Katie Cannon, who's a solid receiver with 4.6 speed. So I'm going to go ahead and say, you look to Baylor here. I think if Baylor runs the table to be able to get in the playoff, but at the moment, nah. South Carolina at Kentucky. Number 7, Stanford's at UCLA. That's a game to keep an eye on because neither team's a big fan of the other. The next team is number 3, Louisville. They're at Marshall. Louisville has possibly the Heisman winner right now at quarterback, and he has looked amazing. Bowling Green at Memphis. Louisiana Lafayette at Tulane. Southern Mississippi at UTEP. Idaho at UNLV. Number 17, Arkansas at number 10, Texas A&M. That should be a good game. California at Arizona State. Bear down. Air Force is at Utah State. And last, number 9, Washington is at Arizona. Nope. And that's that. Other than that, Conor McGregor keeps asking, people keep wanting him to fight Alvarez. At the moment, that is not the fight that's going to happen at 205. At UFC 205, it is rumored that Eddie Alvarez is going to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov for the lightweight title. At the moment, the main event for that is a welterweight battle between Woodley and Thompson, which I lean to Thompson for that. At light heavy, they're still talking about a fight that shouldn't happen, and that is John Jones against Anthony Johnson. I say give Anthony Johnson the shot, watch him hopefully win against Cormier, and then give him John. Doesn't deserve to fight for an interim belt. Give him the shot. Other than that, nothing's really going on. I'll obviously keep you guys apprised of any and all information on the Facebook page, and that pretty much does it. You guys have yourselves a lovely, lovely day. Please subscribe down the little button. It's over here somewhere. And shoot us a like. Thanks. As always, we are brought to you as a huge thank you to Joe Rogan. The JRE, the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, is available on iTunes and YouTube. You can listen to his comedy on Spotify. Also brought to you as a huge thank you to Science, the great tasting, zero-calorie energy drink. Real energy for real people. The unique formula that gives you the #power2. Also, a huge thank you to Sling TV. Take back your TV. I am not sponsored by any of these companies. However, if they'd like to, it'd be fantastic. And we're brought to you, as always, by our one and only sponsor, and that is Bucks. Not given here, not given there, not given anywhere. How's that for a semi-clean podcast? Guys, have yourselves a great day.